we co-chair the collaborative on citizen data. So as a co-chair, Peter is going to open the event. The floor is yours, Peter.
Thank you very much, Howie. And hello, everyone. Unfortunately, I cannot see you all from the perspective I get. I can see the podium, but it's really great that many of you have found their way to the premise in New York, and also that many of you are joining us online now. It is my special pleasure to open this event, Advancing Inclusive Data Systems, Strengthening Citizen Data for Impact. And as Howie said, my name is Peter Koblowski. I work for the International Civil Society Center, which is a hub for NGOs. But today I greet you in my role as the co-chair of the Collaborative on Citizen Data. And yeah, my job that I have now, that I have the honor of, is to get you settled in some way, to give you a rough idea of who is it you will be talking with today, who are the men and women behind that event, what we're doing, what we stand for, and yeah, what we will be talking about for the rest of today. And let me start right away. I hope you can see that the slides are changing. Maybe just to quickly check in. If you can see the next slide now.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So why are we here today? And why do we talk about citizen data? Citizen contributions to data, which encompasses citizens' engagement in different processes throughout the data value chain, starting from the design to the collection and the dissemination and use of data, is actually increasingly recognized over the last years as being critical to the well-being of all members of society, in particular also marginalized groups. And these contributions hold a large potential in that regard. Namely, citizen contributions to data can help empower communities and respect their voices in data-driven dialogues with public institutions. It expands the data production power to citizens. It addresses intersectionalities in different levels of marginalization and helps to analyze those. It helps to hold institutions accountable, and it ensures that data remains relevant and impactful and always related to the people where it came from. And all of this can also be seen as a direct support and being in close alignment with the universal principle to leave no one behind that is captured in the 2030 agenda. So the next question is, who are we? Who is the collaborative? We were established in 23 and mandated by the UN Statistical Commission to develop and finalize the Copenhagen framework on citizen data. Asterisk, that's cryptic. What is that? I will come to that later. Please bear with me. We are also here to provide a space to share knowledge, to share resources, experience among different data practitioners, and to foster collaboration. That's also why you're here in this room. This is one of our key to-dos as the collaborative. We also provide a platform for advocacy and mobilization of relevant stakeholders around the topic of citizen data. And we help to identify conceptual and methodological gaps, and then to develop concrete guidance around citizen data. Maybe another asterisk, I will come back to that later. What type of guidance are we talking about? Again, please bear with me. Why we think our setup is very, very strong and unique, because we are bringing together the unusual suspects, let me say it like that, in terms of data collaborations. We are quite a diverse group that brings together different communities, from civil society organizations, from national statistics organizations, from national human rights institutions, academia, as well as different regional and international organizations like UNSD, UN Women, and so on. And this is also reflected in the composition of our steering committee. At the moment, we have a steering committee that coordinates the work of the collaborative that consists of 10 members. And looking at those members, you see also this is kind of a cross section of the different communities that I just mentioned. And like how you said at the beginning, there's a co-chairing role that is rotating at the moment. The co-chairing role is with the United Nations Statistics Division together with my organization, the International Civil Society Center. The first co-chair or former co-chair also was UN Women. And I thank again, or use this as an opportunity to thank again all the contributions and all the leadership that came from UNSD and UN Women throughout the last years to make all of this work possible. We are a membership-based platform, so at the moment we have more than 100 members. We are open to grow and welcome new members. There is also an onboarding process going on, but actually you will hear more about this later. My job, remember, is just to give you a superficial impression of who we are and who you are speaking to today. So, and now I come back to what I said before, the Copenhagen Framework on Citizen Data. What is this actually? It is a joint conceptual framework that our collaborative has developed and that addresses both governmental and non-governmental data actors. It provides shared principle on data generation and use, and thereby it tries to really act as a common reference frame for actors that come from different backgrounds and have different expertise, and that they have a common reference framework to relate to. But it's more than just being a piece of paper. It also aims to actually help creating an enabling environment for the production and use of citizen data. And we also aim to bring to life a concrete roadmap for how this framework can be implemented by national level data actors in the national data ecosystems. And we try to use the framework also to create data partnerships. Which brings us back to what I said earlier. One of the key roles of the collaborative and hence also of the framework is to act as an enabler of collaboration and joint data action. And the framework is a key tool for that purpose. And now I think there is a mistake with the graphic. Now, hopefully you can see the entire sheet. This is a little historical overview, genesis of the framework. The idea to have that framework, or actually to found the collaborative, was born on the sidelines of an IAEG SDGs meeting in Bangkok, Thailand in November 2022, where some, and I think many of these 10 organizations that I've shown you earlier who are sitting in the steering committee have come together and talked about setting up a collaboration that works towards the end that I just presented, what the Copenhagen framework is standing for. And we have been submitting a request to the UN Stats Commission in early 2023 to set up this collaboration, and gained a mandate to begin with the work on citizen data and provide a common reference framework for this purpose. In April 2023, we officially launched then the collaborative at the World Data Forum in Hangzhou. The effort to do this was actually commended by the UN Secretary General back then. And in September 2023, we had a UN expert group meeting on citizen data that met in Copenhagen in Denmark. And you can already guess it, that is where the name of the framework comes from, because this UN expert group meeting, it brought together representatives from over 20 countries and from different communities, governments, statisticians, NGOs, academia, national human rights institutes, and so on. And together they elaborated the groundwork, the baseline for what later became the Copenhagen framework. The first draft then was submitted back to the Statistics Commission in early 24. It was actually commended, and we received many positive comments from UN member states back then, plus some requests to do some adjustments. And then we used the year 24 to do again, in partnership with our global members, a process to review the draft and to bring the Copenhagen framework to its final stage, which was then endorsed in March this year by the UN Statistics Commission. And that means there is now an endorsed a joint reference framework that is addressing government and non-governmental stakeholders on what citizen data is and how it can be used. And let me also say that as an NGO representative who has worked for many years now to get more recognition of this citizen data topic, this is a major success and a big leap forward for all the many of us, not only for NGOs who have relentlessly worked towards getting this level of recognition, but still the journey is promising, but merely a first step, because having a framework is one thing, implementing it and bringing it close to the day-to-day realities of our partners on the ground is certainly another. And so what we are doing now as the collaborative is to make the framework work for our partners who are involved all around the world. And that means providing guidance, fostering collaboration, and doing this enabling environment that I spoke about earlier. And in that sense, what we are doing is, on the one hand, we are reaching out to all our members, to data practitioners, statistics offices, national human rights institutes, academia, civil society, to see where sits existing knowledge and good practice in terms of citizen data, and also to analyze where are gaps and needs. And in reaction to that, we are building knowledge products. That was the other asterisk of before. So we're trying to having analyzed where there are the biggest needs, we're trying to build now some knowledge products and tools for the generation and use of citizen data on the ground. And that includes guidance on data quality, guidance on what does meaningful engagement of citizens actually mean in practice. We want to have some guidance on the how-to of setting up a national data partnership. We want to provide guidance on using citizen data to analyze intersectionalities, and several other methodological pieces. This is a key activity at the moment. And in parallel, of course, we always try to ensure there's adequate sharing and fostering of knowledge and exchange between our different communities of practice. Activities go on. From this knowledge exchange, we don't only want to provide guidance, we also want to curate and synthesize experiences and derive some impact stories and some key lessons learned that help partners on the ground to manage their data work, their citizen data work. And at the same time, we are doing some scoping exercises, for example, with regard to better understand if and how we can set up a data dashboard for citizen data, producing a roadmap actually towards launching citizen data commons for more visibility and accessibility to citizen data. And as we did from the beginning, we will also continue to set the global agenda, do active advocacy with governments, donors, and other relevant stakeholders to bring citizen data more to their radar. And last but not least, we see it as our mission and goal also to support and build capacities in different countries among the relevant data actors, ensuring that they can work together effectively and work with citizen data. Mentioning all these activities, let me really say a word of gratitude, addressing on the one hand our fellow steering committee colleagues who are dedicating a lot of time and energy to make sure all this gets done. And on the other end, also let me thank to our sponsors of this work, the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation and Google Philanthropies, who are supporting us in in having this implemented and brought to life. So, having a look at what you can expect for today and how this relates to this event. Our next step today, and as always, is to go from theory to action. So we want to work a little bit with you. And me and my colleagues from the collaborative want to share some insights from our work. And we are also very much eager to have you actively involved, learning from your insights and from your practices and also your needs around citizen data. And we will begin with a session that dives deeper into the Copenhagen framework. Again, I only gave you superficial overview. This will be led by Ravi Kumar from the World Bank and Jessica Encarnacion from UN Women. And after a short break, we will dive into the topic of gender and citizen data for transformative action that will be hosted by Papasek from UN Women. Then there will be a longer lunch break between 12:45 to 2 p.m. New York time. And we invite both our on-site and online visitors to come back to us around 2 o'clock to have a deep dive into the capabilities of citizen data to help making data systems more inclusive, having also a look at the intersectional and disability data in particular. That session will be led by Heather Page from UNSD, and then there will be a little break, and at 3:30, and fellow co-chair of the collaborative, Hao-Yi, will invite for a deep dive into how citizen data can be integrated with other data sources. And last but not least, our session has to end at some point, 5 o'clock, and we will be wrapped up by Yong Yimin from UNSD. Coming to the end, let me highlight again the following. Remember what I told you earlier about the key role of the collaborative. We want to foster knowledge exchange, collaboration, and create an enabling environment for the implementation of the Copenhagen framework. To be able to do this, we need your active input and your contributions, also at this event. And your knowledge that you bring to the room on applied citizen data approaches, national data systems, policy needs, stakeholder engagement, and so on, all of that is key to ensure that the Copenhagen framework can be linked to the needs of other data practitioners and users. So your inputs will actually help us developing better practical guidance and linking the Copenhagen framework closer to your work realities, ensuring that everything we produce is relevant to you and to your work that you're doing. And I mean, speaking about making efforts more relevant to your work, no matter if you're a statistician, a researcher, a humanitarian worker, a government representative, or a grassroots activist, let me say one last thing as an NGO representative, why I think this whole collaboration forging that we have done over the last years and that we are still continuing to do is actually highly relevant and a wonderful thing. As NGOs, we are used that our role sometimes is limited to knocking at the door from the outside, trying to find a way in. And at some times, that's a tough job, facing sometimes closed minds and hearts, being treated with sometimes a certain amount of distrust about some of our goals and the ways of doing things. And why should that be any different when we speak of data, right? Data in particular, actually, which is meant to always tell the truth and show how things are. Show it how it is. Well, I think throughout the last years, we had an intense exchange between different communities who have little to no track record at all of working together. And I speak here in particular of NGOs and statisticians. And we realized one thing, namely that we all have the same requirements from data. We want data to reflect the reality of one and all in our societies. But we work with different tool sets, philosophies, and approaches to get towards that goal, which makes it sometimes hard to communicate and understand each other's way of doing things. And I think the process we went through together made us realize that the truth is both approaches reflect the reality. When NGOs say that statistics along the national average sometimes leave out the realities of marginalized communities, and then on the other hand, when statisticians say you have to be careful when you only look at one community, how can you be representative for the society at large? Isn't there a danger of bias? Both approaches reflect the reality of society at large, and the diverse reality of its smallest components. And coming from different backgrounds as data practitioners, what we needed and still need is a common language, language that helps us understand that we actually have the same goal, to provide the best data we can in order to fill critical knowledge gaps, to better understand how our society's complex reality, and that our different approaches can actually complement each other in order to do just that. And I think the Copenhagen framework is a key step to establish this common language and to build the kind of trust that is needed among different data practitioners to work together effectively and create a better and more inclusive data ecosystem. And with that, I think I said it all. The only thing remaining is to wish you an insightful event over the coming hours and thanking you once more for your interest in this highly relevant topic of citizen data. And we are really happy to see that so many of you have found their way in here. And yeah, on behalf of my colleagues from the Citizen Data Collaborative, let me say thank you all for coming. We hope this event will spark meaningful connections and inspire some new ideas and intensify the collaboration that we already have with some and many of you. So with that, I say thank you and hand over to Howie.
Thank you so much, Peter, for the great opening. Thank you for introducing the collaborative. Now I would like to, without further delay, and invite Ravi, the moderator for session 1. Ravi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Howie, and good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to those of you who are in a part of the world where there's 3 p.m. or 4. It's great to hear from Peter, and he talked about collaboration, and I thought, for collaboration to be effective, you need coffee. And so for those of you who are in New York or in Eastern time zone and haven't had coffee, please go and get some coffee. I think it's just a few steps away here, right? Yes. And some breakfast as well. As Harvey said, my name is Ravi Kumar. I'm with the World Bank Chief Statistician Office, and it's a pleasure to be here today, this morning, to help moderate the event on advancing inclusive data systems, strengthening citizen data for impact. Of course, it's a busy day here in New York, especially at the UN, and I'm sure you could be at a number of other events. We're very grateful that you made the decision to be here today. So thank you again. We will have a series of presentations, and I'm sure they'll be very exciting. So just, we'll hear from my colleague, Howie Chen from UNSD on the Copenhagen Framework on Citizen Data. Then Al Kags, my friend who is joining remotely from the Open Institute about MOOC e-learning course they are developing on the Copenhagen Framework. And then Liliana Sutodolska. So full transparency, Liliana, if I messed up the last name, you gotta forgive me. And please, help me so that next time I do a better job. She's from Paris 21, and she'll also talk about a MOOC on e-learning course and evidence-driven inclusive VNR development and the role of citizens. And then Rachel McSweeney from Office for National Statistics, UK, she will talk about exploring citizen data to strengthen trust in population statistics. So those are the 4 presentations. Of course, you're probably thinking, gosh, so many presentations, when will I get to ask questions or have discussion? Yes, after that, we will have a chance to do Q&A. And then after that, my great colleague, Jessamine, let's see, Incarnation from UN Women will summarize and provide closing remarks. As we get started, and have our presenters get ready, let me just say a few words. We are doing some of the work we're doing at the World Bank Chief Statistician Office to support the citizen data agenda. Of course, it's a privilege to be part of the steering committee of the collaborative on citizen data, and we are very grateful and excited to see its expanding role and the vibrant discussion. One of the things recently we have undertaken is an analytical task to understand the quality criteria needed on citizen data to be part of the official statistics or to support NSOs across regions to monitor development indicators. And in a few months we'll have more update, but I wanted to just share that. And of course, if anyone has any ideas or comments, I'll be happy to talk offline as well about that. With that, and without further delay, please let me welcome back our colleague, Howie. Thank you very much. And by the way, how many minutes we got for each presentations?
Well, you're the chair.
Alright.
You decide.
Sorry.
If we all agree to skip coffee break.
All right, okay, we have 10 minutes each then, yeah?
Okay. Get it? Thank you, colleagues. Let me get into my presentation. So thank you, Peter, for covering quite a bit of the background on the collaborative, on the roadmap. So I'm not going to cover that. I will go straight into the Copenhagen framework. So Peter had talked about citizen contribution to data. And here is a slide to show what we as a collaborative and also how the framework see the citizen data. Citizens can contribute to data in many ways, and they can really support to make census and traditional official statistics, census and surveys more inclusive. But for us, for the Copenhagen framework, citizen data is actually the one circled in this purple pink circle. It is really about data that citizens are really meaningfully engaged in the production of use of data. So their contribution, citizen contribution only to census and surveys from the official statistics, that those are not citizen data. So citizen data, they can be integrated into official statistics, but they don't have to be. If they wanted to be completely independent, and they should be like that, but these are all considered citizen data as long as in our framework. Okay, before I get to, so why do we have a framework? When we started 2022 in Bangkok, we had our first meeting talking about the framework, citizen data, and then everyone really has completely different understanding. And what about Fitbit data? What about social media data? These are all contributions from citizens. Are they considered citizen data? So that's why we felt there's a need to really frame, give us a frame and say, okay, this is something that we're all talking about, and having a common understanding about it. What citizen data is about. And then we also, the framework help us as we move along. For example, we really hope the framework can lead to positive transformation for a more inclusive data and policy environment. And then we wanted to make the point that citizen data, the framework, is not only about filling data gaps. We need the citizens not only because they can fill data gaps. It is actually the other way around. It's citizens, we want them to see themselves in data, and they're part of this process of producing data and then use the data to change their own lives. So that's even more important than filling data gaps. And of course, raise awareness and how important it is for meaningful and sufficient engagement and participation of citizens throughout the entire data value chain from the very beginning to the end, encourage responsible production and use of citizen data. We do have a section, so I will go later, on the role of national statistical offices. So what's in the framework? We have 5 sections in the framework. First is define citizen data, and then we talk about the principles. Many of you, if you're familiar with the fundamental principle for official statistics, we do talk about here, we have 13 principles for citizen data. They align with fundamental principles, but they have very specific areas that are really unique to citizen data that we've felt that the users of the framework needs to pay attention to that. And then we have a section, of course, on the role of NSOs, and then a set of enabling environments for sustainable coordination, production, and use of citizen data. We have a roadmap that Peter has already put it out. So citizen data, this is we call it operational definition. We've debated for a year and a half, more about 2 years, and then finally finalized it. We don't want, at first, the version that people felt like we were judging. Yes, you are citizen data. No, you're not. So we don't want to be like that. So we're becoming a lot more flexible, inclusive. At the same time, we really encourage citizen data producers to engage, having sufficient and meaningful engagement of citizens from the very beginning of design of the data collection all the way to the use of data. The highest, we encourage the data producers to strive for the highest possible engagement of citizens. So these are the 13 principles. I'm not going to read out, but if you look at, for example, number 3, participation inclusion, this is very, very unique to this. And then we also talk about self-definition, that's number 7, self-definition, self-determination, how important it is, and 8, data sovereignty, which is usually extremely important for indigenous population groups. And I think those are the, yeah. Of course, ethical and safe, all the others are shared with the fundamental principles. Yeah, we have a section on the role of NSOs and what can NSO do? If they already work in many of the national state offices, we have Ghana here in the room. And of course, we have UK online, and then many of them have taken a very proactive role in really leaning forward on how NSO can help in being the data steward and in either providing guidance on data quality or really get into the space of qualitative data that's really a strength of a citizen data. This is the set of, we have 10 instead of enabling environment. And yeah, this is, Peter already talked about the roadmap and the ongoing activities. So we are currently working on a set of tools and methodological guides, including data quality. We really wanted to get into this space that when people ask, how do you define data quality for citizen data? What about qualitative data? Can you use the same set of standard? What if they're for different purposes? Can we have a fit for purpose guide, fit for purpose quality standard for citizen data? So this is something that we're working on right now. We also have a guide on participation, intersectionality. There will be something related to gender. So forthcoming. Lastly, we are going to have our next expert group meeting, the fourth expert group meeting in Cali, Colombia, in October. So over there, we will have a great opportunity for all of the work streams to report back on the implementation of the framework. I think that's all my slides. Is that 10 minutes or past?
No, you have 2 more minutes.
Hi, I can land it over to Al.
Okay. Well, thank you. This is great. Please give her a big hand. I can see there's only 7 minutes. Thank you. Yes. Al, you get about 12 minutes. We good.
And if I can't use all of them, I will sing.
Okay. I'm being told you only get 10 minutes. All right. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's really great to join everyone here. I wish I could have been there, but conflicts and all of those things. But I'm very happy to see so many people made it to New York and to hear some of the conversations that are going on. I have been attending several sessions online, and I have found them to be extremely useful. With your permission, I'm going to share my screen so that I can be able, I hope you can see my screen, which I have in front of me. Over the past, I want to say, few months, we got together with Howie, with Ravi, and a few others, and we have been working closely on developing an online course on the Copenhagen framework that Howie has just presented. The idea is to have an online course that is self-paced, that is modular, and that allows for different people to sort of understand the framework better. This is not to say that the framework is a difficult document to understand, but we want to be as inclusive as possible and to make sure that as many people can participate and even give their views and contribute to it as possible. And so the MOOC, the online course, is developed by the Open Institute with support from the World Bank. And we're very grateful to especially members of the Secretariat, not the Secretariat, but the Citizen Data Collaborative, who have given a lot of input into how the MOOC is structured, some of the content and how the content has been structured. It's been several months of really painstaking work, and we're very happy with the result that we now have. The reason why we built the course is to make sure that we have as many people included in the thinking as possible. So whereas the hardcore practitioners, such as yourselves, many of you in the room are, would understand where we are so far with within the collaborative and what citizen data is about and what the various approaches are and what the principles are. There are many other people like who are civil servants in different ministries, who are community members, even grassroots community-based organizations, who are producing data and who should participate and who should understand such things as what counts as citizen data, how it can be responsibly used, where does it fit in the rest of the ecosystem, and what does the rest of the ecosystem look like. And so what we try to do is to address those knowledge gaps as much as possible, so that then people can really be part of it. The model that we took in designing the MOOC is that it has 5 modules. An intro, it is talking a lot about the approaches to citizen data. I think I misspelled that. I wrote types. It's approaches to citizen data. How data is driving decision making, technology and enabling citizen data, real world case studies, and there's a lot of stories from different parts of the world that we have incorporated just to bring a lot of the principles and a lot of the ideas in the framework to life, so that it is practical, so that it is contextual, and people can be able to run with it. As I said, it is for, of course, national statistical officers, so that they can use it to train their teams. Not everybody gets to go to New York, so that they can also know how to integrate citizen data responsibly into our national statistical systems. Other government agencies who do, use administrative data, for example, how can they use that and how can they collaborate with citizen-led initiatives? CSOs, NGOs, community-based organizations, so that they can learn how to, align projects with national systems and especially figure out how to aspire to certain standards. And then communities themselves figure out how their local data can drive real change, and how, when, for example, a community collects citizen-generated data, how do they aspire to the best possible standards? What we're intending to do with it is, it has not been released yet, but we're looking at it being either put on the World Bank's e-learning portal or SOMO, which is our e-learning portal at the Open Institute, or both, or even in other e-learning portals, so that it is as accessible and as available as possible to as many people as possible. It will be available to everyone in this room and more, to everyone literally. And it will be integrated into trainings. At the Open Institute, we have done a number of trainings with NSOs in different countries, especially here in Africa. And we would be very keen to integrate this into the training so that it enhances knowledge and it ensures that people are using it. So it will be released in the next couple of weeks. Look out for information. I know that Ravi and I have a blog post that we have drafted, just waiting to announce, and we shall be alerting you to where it will be and where it will be. So look out for it. Our goal is to support the implementation of the framework and make sure that as many people as possible have access to it. Thank you very much. And Ravi, I don't know if I've used all of my 10 minutes, or should I break into song?
No, that was just about 7 minutes. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Liliana, I believe. Thank you all. And about the MOOC, yes, just in a few weeks, we will be able to release it. I want to thank Al and his colleagues for doing a fantastic job, and of course the collaborative for their generous engagement. Liliana, over to you.
Thanks so much, Ravi, and thanks, Al, for your presentation. So let me just start sharing mine. If you could just confirm you can see it.
Yeah. We're good.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Liliana Suchadolska. I'm proudly wearing the most difficult name in the collaborative, probably. So we're very happy to see you today while online, and also very happy to see that engagement that we have so far online as well. So Paris 21, this is a partnership hosted at the OECD. We support low and middle income countries' national statistical systems, and we work on capacity building. We provide leadership training, advocacy towards strengthening financing for statistics, but also we engage in various initiatives to bring more quality, more participation, more engagement around emerging topics such as gender or climate change at the heart of official statistics and therefore policy making. So my role today is to present to you a new e-learning course that we have been developing together with the European Commission Directorate General for International Partnerships, as well as DESA, UN DESA Statistics Division. So this e-learning course is also contributing to the implementation of the Copenhagen framework. And the idea is basically to increase the buy-in of VNR leading ministries in governments into understanding of the role of citizen data and understanding which institution in their setup is able to help with the uptake of citizen data. So a bit of a background why we are doing this. Of course, Paris 21 is part of the steering committee of the collaborative, and our role is also to promote the uptake of Copenhagen framework, but we also want to make sure that governments understand the role of national statistical offices in actually fostering this participatory approach to data. So last year at the High Level Political Forum, we have released a report called Data-Driven Voluntary National Review. And one of the findings of that report, which analyzed all VNRs, which is also built on interviews with VNR leading ministries, statistical offices, and civil society, we understood that the role of national statistical offices in actually fostering that participatory movement of citizen data is still not well understood. And while this is, probably understandable when you sit in the government and you understand how bureaucracies work, how statisticians work, it may not necessarily be clear, for example, for civil society, where their national statistical office is still perceived as part of government, and where the role of official data, official statistics, and their official processes is still not understood fully as well. So I invite you to consult this report, but basically it builds a basis for the e-learning course that we have developed further. So just to come back to basics, of course, the 2030 Agenda principle, the whole of society and evidence-based approach, it's at the heart of both the work of the collaborative on citizen data, but also of the work of governments, and it's the guiding principle of the voluntary national review. And it's probably understood and trivial to say that VNR should be based on evidence, should be informed by country-led evaluation and data, which is high quality, accessible, timely, and disaggregated by various characteristics. But then on the understanding of how this should happen is another story, right? How this principle should transcend to the mandate of the National Statistical Office and its capabilities. So this e-learning course provides a couple of entries towards understanding the role of Statistics Office in bridging the gap between governments and citizens when we think of data. So the target audience for this course is officers in governments in charge of the VNR preparation. So here we could also think of top and middle managers of statistics offices, international organizations who support VNR processes, but also, of course, civil society actors. So the course has 4 modules, a basic introduction to the VNR, the role of coordination by statistics office, and the very core section here, the civil society module on citizens' participation in data-driven VNR. That's the one I'll be talking about today, which basically brings this narrative of why voluntary national review is such a good moment for governments to think of bringing citizen data on the radar. And the course is finalized also by a communication module, which highlights the importance of data literacy among the governments who produce the VNR report, but of course data communication, which will result in a higher understanding and uptake of statistics produced by governments, and then also the importance of storytelling, which is not necessarily always championed by statistics offices, but it's definitely something that in where civil society is scoring best. So the civil society module here will have 3 sections on rationale and benefits of civil society engagement in the voluntary national review. The second one is on entries for citizen engagement during and after the VNR. And also a couple of further readings, including also summaries and tests for you to test your knowledge. So what is covered in this module? We bring a couple of examples from governments which have operationalized citizen data or citizen-generated data. It's called differently sometimes in various countries. But I think the most important is basically enlarging the scope of what is evidence, what is official statistics, bringing novel approaches to quality assurance, because now we are talking about data produced somewhere else than National Statistical Office or government. And bringing the kind of the premise of citizen data of whole of society approach to the voluntary national review, engagement of citizens in the SDGs, their ownership of SDGs, how this can happen. We also explore a bit the role of umbrella civil society actors here. So the fact, for example, that national statistical offices have rarely skills and capabilities to engage with the wide array of civil society actors one by one. And we recognize the important role of actually umbrella bodies or intermediary platforms which can support the premise of bringing citizen data at the heart of official statistics and policy making. And we bring some examples here. You have a picture from Kenya and SDG Kenya Forum who played that role. But there are also other examples, and we explain why it's important to have that middleman in this process. We also provide a couple of, basic intro on the data quality oversight, how countries did that, but then resources provide more in-depth literature on this topic. And as announced by Peter and Howie, we are also actively working in the collaborative to provide more specific detailed guidance on quality assurance and on the way in which these partnerships could be built. So in a nutshell, the main recommendation from this, from the report that we had, but also from the e-learning, is to recognize that NSOs and CSOs are allies in bringing more inclusive data at the heart of policymaking in tackling the development issues. And they just need to, sometimes just step into that role, recognize their mandates and see where the gaps are in terms of the mandates, but also in terms of data, and imagine a better, data partnership than just gaps filling as Howie suggested. And that can happen, of course, during the VNR process, but also after. We know that this is sometimes requires a bit of, change of the mindset on both sides, bridging the trust issues that may arise between NSO and civil society. but also improving communication, leadership, data literacy. You know, there's a whole array of capacities that need to be built on both sides here. And that's the role also of this collaborative to bridge these two communities. But the momentum is there. We see already wonderful cases, best practices coming up, and we'll be happy to share them with you. For now, I leave you with this e-learning course. You can consult it on the links below. They are available in both places, in INTPA Academy and Paris 21 Academy. They are free, self-paced. The full duration is 90 minutes, so it's really 1.5 hours of very well spent time. So please don't hesitate to share it with those stakeholders, you know, who are engaged in voluntary national review, who still hesitate whether citizen data is a good idea. And with this, I thank you so much for your attention, and over to you, Ravi.
Thank you very much, Liliana. And we have the last presentation from Rachel. Rachel, do we have Rachel here?
Yes, hello, thank
Okay.
you.
Hi, Rachel, over to you.
Hi, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm joining you from South Wales in the UK, and I'm part of the Office for National Statistics. So we are the UK's independent producer of national statistics for the economy, society, and populations. And we also run the decennial census for England and Wales. I'll just share these. Let me know if you can see these okay. Okay. So my role within the Office for National Statistics is that I'm the head of citizen data. This is a fairly new role for the office, and it really represents a commitment to the value of this methods as a tool within our wider toolbox of methods that we use to produce high quality statistics. And our real mandate for our interest in this work and for doing this work on citizen data is around improving the quality, inclusivity, and trustworthiness of our population statistics. So just last week, the UK government commissioned the 2031 census after a recommendation from ONS. And within that commission and recommendation, there was a real emphasis on making this the most inclusive census and ensuring that everyone's counted and that populations that are typically underrepresented are counted in the data. And this is where citizen data can really help. If certain citizens have not responded to a previous census or a survey, or perhaps they don't trust government and therefore appear in administrative data, citizen data, which we often speak of as synonymous with civil society organization data, can help potentially address those gaps or help bring in insights about those populations and lived experience that we might not otherwise have. So the work that we've been doing has been very much aligned with the UN Copenhagen framework and the definition of citizen data. And we've been active participants in the UN Citizen Data Collaborative for this past year or so. Just before I go into our main piece of work that I wanted to share with you today, which is around a feasibility study into citizen data, I just wanted to highlight that this work is not new for ONS, but perhaps was not called citizen data in the past. And this issue may come up in other areas as well. But for our crime statistics, for a number of years, we've been drawing on data sources from civil society to help us better understand certain populations. We have a natural capital estimate where we draw on citizen science collected data to understand the biodiversity of the UK. And some of these approaches of involving citizens at the design stage is often used when we come up with what we would call harmonized definitions of certain concepts in our questionnaires, for instance, for ethnicity or gender identity. So our definition of citizen data, as I mentioned, aligns to the one that was presented by Howie earlier. Our interest is in that lower strand definition, which is around citizens being meaningfully engaged in the production and use of data. So in order to investigate more about the potential of using citizen data to improve population statistics, we kicked off a feasibility research study earlier this year to assess whether data held by civil society could be used to inform and improve our population statistics. We used a mixed methods approach, starting with a literature review to understand the wider landscape of what other national statistics offices and CSOs have done, and of course learning through the collaborative. We developed our own quality assessment criteria to assess data sets, and we carried out qualitative case study interviews with civil society organisations, as well as internal case study, in order to develop a nuanced and rich picture. So I'll just tell you briefly about the data quality assessment. First of all, this is by no means representative of the full data landscape, but we reviewed 124 data sets from UK-based civil society organisations on topics that relate to population. So that included topics like homelessness, migration, health, disability. And we developed a quality assessment criteria framework drawing on about 9 existing frameworks, some of which you may be familiar with, which are international frameworks such as from the UN or Eurostat, but we also have some unique UK-based frameworks. And that allowed us to bring together some criteria that you might be familiar with. So we were looking at these data sets, judging their relevance to population statistics, their accuracy, were they timely, were they accessible, could we download the data, was there metadata, were they ad hoc or frequently updated? And for each of those criteria, we had a scoring framework from 1 to 5 to allow us to give then an aggregate score for each data set. But as we went on this journey, exploring the available data sets, we found a lot of rich assets that were qualitative. And in that space, we didn't find so much precedent of qualitative quality assessment framework. So we reviewed the academic literature and came up with an initial framework which evaluated different criteria, such as consideration of ethics, the reflexivity and reflection of the researcher and their own position in relation to the research they were doing, whether the research was replicable. So that allowed us to assess those data assets as well. And when we completed the review, we found that a lot of the data sets were of high quality and aligned to a number of use cases. So there was a use case that we call granularity, which is that it could help us better understand lower level characteristics, and go into more detail there, or lower level geographies where there might be current missingness or gaps around the data. It helped with coverage, and sometimes it could help with timeliness, where that data was published more frequently than other sources. Or it could serve a purpose around quality assurance, to quality assure statistics already produced. As I mentioned, we complemented this with some qualitative work. So we reached out to 8 civil society organizations to ask them about the data they produce, why they produce it, how they manage data quality, the kind of impact they had. And the high level findings we found were that a lot of these data sets were representative of the populations they intended to serve. A lot of consideration had gone into quality assurance and inclusive, sensitive data collection methods and engagement methods. There's a lot of grassroots involvement and co-production from start to finish that we could really learn from. And often the leads or people collecting data from the CSOs were seen as trusted community partners. We were also pleased to see a lot of these organisations were keen to collaborate more with ONS in their data collection efforts, in sharing their insights and lived experiences, which we were pleased to see. Just in the interest of time, I'll just miss that detail around our internal case studies, which I mentioned earlier, and just summarise with our key learnings from this work. So from this feasibility study, we can see that citizen data produced by civil society organisations in the UK is a valuable, potentially underutilised resource in the national statistical system. We can see many of these data sets align with our priorities and data definitions. There's good consideration of quality from what we can see, and some good practices exist, but there is some variability to consider and perhaps some capability that we could support. Align with what Howie said earlier, the use and integration of data like this needs the right enabling environment and conditions, and that was very much confirmed by our interviews. But we can see that there is good potential to improve the quality and trustworthiness of our population statistics and good potential for partnership. So this is, as I said, a data source and a tool that we will be considering as we start our research and development in the lead up to Census 2031. And we're excited to share more through the collaborative and events like this about the research that we continue to do in this area. Thank you.
Right, so thank you very much for the fantastic presentation. Now, please, I know we have a few more minutes, and so I'll take the opportunity to open for questions or discussions. And do we have folks online? So if you could just say their name and the question or comment. And then, of course, we want to give the opportunity to our friends here in the room. All right, one, please go ahead. I think this mic would work. There you go, ma'am.
Thank you, Joe Crawford, working with the Equality Insights team in Australia. My question is to Rachel, I guess to some of the other presenters online, which is to what extent is some of the issue with quality and evidence of quality assurance that you saw with citizen data an issue of being very in the work and under prioritizing documentation? So maybe I suppose a question of is there an issue of priorities and evidence gathering there that might be helpful for civil society organisations in terms of assuring others who are looking on about the processes that they're using? Thanks.
Thank you. Maybe we'll take one more. Okay, 2 questions and then we'll come back. We'll come back to you then.
Thank you. Hi, Scarlett Lances with Accountable Impact, based in Miami, Florida. I have a question, and I don't know who is this question for, but so there's a lot of emphasis on VNRs, but we haven't heard anything about VLRs, the voluntary local reviews, right? And I'm wondering if there's a opportunity to develop courses for voluntary local reviews, practitioners, and if that particular course that Paris 21, that organization is focusing on, is focusing on national statistics offices, can be then directed to support municipalities in those specific countries to support VLR processes. I'm interested in learning that because we are thinking about doing one in Miami for Miami-Dade County. So yes, that'll be fantastic. Thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the presentations. They were really interesting. And I was wondering about specifically maybe to Rachel, what are the main obstacles to include sexual orientation and gender identity in the statistics? Because I know that we are trying to leave nobody out, and but if we think that most of the studies, the citizens data, say that LGBT people are about 15% or 18% of our countries, there's a lot of people who are out of the statistics. And I want to know which countries, or if there are some really efforts to include sexual orientation and gender identity, or what are the obstacles that statisticians are facing on this?
Well, thank you very much. I think, if I may, we have 3 questions. Please allow us to respond to them, and we'll come back to you. Okay. And there are a few more. All right, we'll take these 3 questions first, and then we'll go to her and then to online. Okay. So who is going to respond? I think Rachel, over to you.
Yes, great question around quality assurance. I'm happy to come in on that one first. I would say first thing to highlight in terms of quality assurance practices of civil society organisations is that compared with the national statistics system, we don't always use the same definitions of concepts. So that can create a bit of a challenge in terms of coherence and data linkage. Now, there's different perspectives you could take on that because they may have come up with certain definitions or questions based on feedback from citizens, but in which case we might simply need to talk about comparability. We just need those concepts to be comparable enough. I think that was one challenge. Another challenge is there are very known quality assessment frameworks within the statistical system and government that weren't necessarily known by the civil society organisations. A lot of the same practices were carried out, but maybe not in the same way or using the same language. So I think using the same frameworks can be a helpful assurance that the quality standards have been followed. I'm just looking back through the notes from the interviews, and I think those were the main challenges that we'd highlighted, but happy to follow up if there's anything else I can find from the transcripts.
Okay, thank you very much. And anyone who wants to respond to the question about sexual representation in the survey? Okay, maybe we can have a discussion later. Is that okay? Yeah. All right. I'll pass on the, and ma'am, the question about the municipality course. I think we will, as the collaborative, we will look into what the options are. Maybe if there's a course already available, and perhaps some of us will get back to you. Okay, thank you. Can I go back to her? I promised her.
Yeah, no, it's just, I'll speak with the person in the break.
Okay, that's perfect. Well, yes, maybe you both can connect. Over to you. Would you mind passing the mic? Thanks.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Katie Tobin from WeDo. My question's for Howie. I was wondering about the definitions of sufficient and meaningful engagement, or like highest possible engagement, and if that's something that one of the knowledge products is going to focus on, because I think that would be super useful. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
I can respond. Yes, absolutely. So this I think we got a lot of questions when the framework was out. One is, of course, data quality. We set a very high standard, but then people say, how do we do that? You say meaningful, but what does it mean? So yes, there will be a guide based on case studies because they are going to be different across contexts and communities. So we are going to collect examples and case studies and show in what specific situation how the communities have been doing in engaging, how it's being measured, how could it be measured in terms of meaningful. We did say a little bit in the framework then meaningful in the sense that their participation has contributed to the improvement of their well-being, that seeing an impact. So it's very, very interesting. It's a very unknown, not unknown for other areas. For statistics, it's quite new. So if you would like to contribute and help us, please feel free to join the force. There are a few questions online.
Yes.
Should I?
Yes,
So I'm just going to summarize a few, and there are quite a few questions for Rachel on the data quality. So they're looking forward to receiving the report. I know you are in the process of finalizing them. So when they are available, please share. We will share through the collaborative as well. Then there, of course, there's a question on, it hasn't come out yet, is in the age of AI, how do we balance that with ethical use, production of citizen data, how the framework could help with that. So that's a field, maybe Francesca, you would like to say a few words on that as well. And then there's a question on how we support countries. So the collaborative has a little bit funding to support country work and community work at the community level. One is to build capacity. One is to bring the Copenhagen framework to the communities. How do we really bring them down to the communities? And the other thing is, how do we bring the great work at the communities to the global level work? So we did, I think it was beginning of this year, we sent out a global consultation and also the questionnaire on the needs and demands, open call. We see quite a bit, I think 150 responses. So this is part of the work on stock taking exercise on the collaborative. And then we are working with communities that have brought out, made a request for support. And so we are going towards that direction. And then India is actually going to be probably on the list. So this question is for India. So, but overall on capacity building, yes, we have a set of ways of approaching that. Now the AI, do you want to say a few words? Because it's so linked to the principles that you have drafted on the framework.
Thank you. Yeah, I can say, before I say a few words about AI, which is a very important question, I also wanted to address the issue of how we incorporate LGBTQI plus issues and how we address, the leaving no one behind within the work of the collaborative. There are two other work streams that we haven't covered yet. One is the working group on gender that's coming up next session. And then right after lunch is the work stream on intersectionality. In both of those work streams, that is one of the most important areas we cover in different ways, and trying not just to look at, the principles and the ideas behind, but also concretely at what data tools exist that we can integrate to address those needs. So stay tuned a little bit more in the two next sessions. On the AI, there was a question online, right? Yeah. On the AI, the collaborative has addressed that from the beginning. I would say it's been one of the aspects that we discussed, especially as we highlighted in the beginning. Citizen data are not just a data source. It's not just some new data to fill data gaps, but it's really about giving citizens agency and really making them part of the whole data production throughout the data value chain, especially the first part of the data value chain. What matters, how you approach the measurement, and how you conceptualize what needs to be measured, which is very relevant to groups that are often invisible or misrepresented in the official data. So it's been a discussion. We treated it from that angle, how the citizen engagement can counterbalance the AI big new trend of, with all the risks that involves. But we also we haven't come up with the real work streams on exactly how to frame the work of the collaborative, but we're also trying to see how can we then develop concrete tools to counteract and to integrate some of the data that the citizen and communities produce, to bring and sort of reduce the risks of those biases more concretely in terms of coverage. So those are the two sort of angles that the collaborative has looked at.
Thank you very much. And if I may just add about AI, is that, when you have quality, comprehensive data, it supports what the AI is going to produce. And I think, generally speaking, with citizen data, you could assume that in an ideal setting, theoretically, you would have comprehensive data set that reflects the reality and the nuance in the lives of people, including the most marginalized folks in our communities. And that would hopefully, as Francesco was saying, counteract basically some of the biases or help correct in an ideal setting. And so we hope that down the road, the collaborative would be able to play that constructive role. I know we have quite a few questions, so let's see. All right, I'll go to her and then I'll come to you and then I'll come back to you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you to all the presenters and for organizing this day. My name is Melissa Wild with the University for Peace. We are an institute of higher education and also a permanent observer mission to the UN. I'd be very interested after to chat with folks around the courses and see if there's a way to collaborate there. Mike, I had two questions and I think they're relatively general, although they might be best positioned as questions regarding the Copenhagen framework. The first is around the knowledge products. Forgive me if this is a bit too linguistic in my perspective, but just framing it as a knowledge product. I'm curious what that actually means. Are these products in the sense, I recognize it's a term, but I'm challenging, I guess, how we approach the creation of data as something that has an economic value. And that kind of relates to my broader question, speaking as someone who participates in data projects, but am more so on the practitioner side and in the work of peace building at the community level. How do we avoid creating extractive practices in the creation of data, even when we have as wide a range of participation from citizens in the creation of the data, it is then held somewhere, right? And we know at the end of the day, especially, it's very hard to escape the larger companies that hold data, the physical spaces where data centers are located, and those who profit from those from the holding of data, and then selling of it. So I'm really curious to hear how the Copenhagen framework helps to address that, in particular in vulnerable countries in the majority world where data right now is we're getting data from those places that are at higher risk on front lines of climate change, for instance, is so important at the international level. And yet places, folks who live there at risk of having their data be put to use for commercial purposes or for other kinds of extractive purposes, even if they're involved in the creation of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, go to that, sir.
Yeah, hi there. Phil Crean with Kappa Lab. I'm really, really hopeful about this agenda. I think the biggest challenge that I see in my own work around the world is just a complete lack of resources for civil society. So the generators of citizen-generated data, as well as the lack of resources for statistics offices who want to be working on this. Because at the end of the day, we can't do this with just goodwill and hugs alone. There has to be resources. So my question for the panelists is, in these MOOCs, in these online trainings, is there a focus on resource mobilization for civil society and for statistics offices? And if I could ask the same of our moderator, because the World Bank is a huge resource mobilizer in this grand scheme of things. We had with the World Bank the trust fund to support state statistical capacity, which is a fantastic trust fund. It has since retired and something has come out of it. I don't know quite what it is, but is the World Bank ready to when statistics offices and ministries of finance approach it for the question of support to statistical capacity when it comes to citizen-generated data, inclusive data, is the World Bank ready to support recipient-executed technical capacity for this agenda? I know that's very technical and it might be outside your remit, but I still had to ask it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fantastic question. We'll now go to our ma'am here at the back, and then we'll come back to you.
Hi. Yeah, my question has to do with the online training courses, actually. So we heard about 2 courses that are going to be offered. I was just wondering, because they're targeted to the same set of people. And I was just wondering when this World Bank starts selling the course, and when Paris 21 and that group starts selling the course, are we going, hopefully there's nothing contradictory in the contents of the courses, but I was wondering if there's been any attempt to coordinate in terms of saying, okay, this course is going to supplement this and this ideas. I think when you start distributing the course and telling people, hey, there are courses that are available, and this is how you can use them, if that has been thought of in the development. Thank you.
Great questions. Any more? Okay, let me just start by responding if it's okay. Sorry, do you have comments online? Okay, so I must admit, I don't drink coffee and I woke up at 3 a.m. So I'm going to tackle these 3 questions first and then go online. I hope that's okay. All right, thank you very much. So we'll start with responding, and I'll, of course, hand over to our fantastic panelist. The questions about the courses. So, about the MOOC that the World Bank is supporting. Of course, all the colleagues in the collaborative have had a chance to respond and comment. To the best of my knowledge, they are not contradictory to the great course that Liliana and her colleagues are producing. I think the idea here is to, rather than sell, is to help provide some resource in what we can all acknowledge is a very constrained environment for the international development space. So some resource to build capacity, generate awareness around citizen data. That's why the MOOCs are created. And I will let my other colleagues respond and add here as well. So I hope that responds at least partially to your question. Now, the fantastic question about the bank's ability and interest. So we are very interested, of course. That's why I woke up at 3 a.m. to get here today, this morning. Now, in all seriousness, I think it's important to acknowledge that you're right. Just the hugs and the goodwill doesn't do much, right? You need funding and the capacity to be able to, and the political will and the support to be able to implement this. And I think, to your point, there is a global data facility at the World Bank's Chief Statistician Office. We have had discussion to mobilize resources. I must admit that, again, it's a constrained environment when it comes to fiscal resources. But that being said, there are a couple of things ongoing that I think the bank could support. So at a minimum level, you see we continue to support like some of these courses to build initial capacity and awareness. And then the bank is also in the process, the World Bank Chief Statistician Office is in the process of launching a data academy. And that we will partner with think tanks, universities, and others to help build capacity and use train the trainers model to really sustain that capacity in those contexts, rather than taking a helicopter approach and organizing a nice workshop for a week in a nice hotel. Yeah. But I hope, and then but I know that's not enough. I think as the environment hopefully improves, we'll have more funding. And I've been asked. You're thankfully not the first person to ask this. Howie doesn't miss a bit. She continues to ask me for what we can do, and I've continued to get a D in my job. But my hope is, we're all. I think in a difficult environment, you want to be creative and resourceful, and hope that we attract more resources, we'll be able to allocate this. But I don't want to take more time. Pass on to Howie and others to respond to more questions.
Rachel and Liliana.
No, the other guy.
Okay, so we will go back to Rachel and Liliana about the taxonomy and the how do you name the courses and all those fantastic questions we had. And so over to you, Rachel and Liliana.
I think you had your hand up first. You can go.
Okay, thank you. So this is just to quickly build on what Ravi said, and thank you so much for all the great questions. So very quickly, the VLR's local reviews are not part of the e-learning yet, but we do recognize the need of covering this area, especially because the usefulness of citizen data is especially seen at the local level. There are really very few civil society actors that may have nationally representative data. So we recognize this as a gap, and definitely if resources are available, we'll be really happy to work with partners on that. And now when it comes to resource mobilization, huge issue, of course. So this is just a share of, how we work in the collaborative. For the first few years, we actually were running just on goodwill, so to say, and trying to mainstream participation into our respective programs. With the Copenhagen framework being the overarching document, with us spending marginal additional time at our margins, not marginal, but additional time to run this initiative without any funding. So this is really a powerhouse of practitioners that see the value of this work, but also the value of this work for sustainable development. And we are now, getting some first basic resources to run this work, to coordinate between us, but we need much more substantive and systemic funding in order to be able to provide really comprehensive guidance to countries and our partners. So this is just to say resource mobilization definitely should be on the agenda here for data, especially we are now in 2025, so many foundational data collection sources were cut. So how do we get from there? We are working constantly with partners. At Paris 21, we have built a clearinghouse to understand better how much donors and countries, governments support statistical systems. But this is a work in progress. It requires more transparency from donors, from governments, from all partners working on support to data to actually, provide shed more light on this issue. But thank you for these questions, really important.
Thank you, Liliana. Rachel, would you like to come in?
Yes, thank you. And I see Howie nudging us along with the session, and I'm sure everyone's ready for some coffee by now. But I just want to address some of the good questions in the audience. There was one around extractive methods and another around the resources of civil society organizations, just to share our insights. And I think someone was saying, how do we ensure that data is co-owned and data collection doesn't feel extractive? And we're inspired by an example in the New Zealand Statistics Office for their census in 2031. For the first time, the data was released on a non-government owned platform called Te Wata, and that is owned by the Maori tribes. So this means that they now have greater control and ownership over their own census data. And it's this idea that the data is for them and for that population. And there may be someone on the call right now who's been more involved than me, but I thought that was a great example of what it can look like to take co-ownership of data. On that question around the resources of civil society, we certainly saw that in reaching out, asking for interviews, asking for completion of questionnaires. We recognized that we needed to incentivize participation and also value the assets and insight they could provide us with. So through our data ethics process, we received approval to give donations to these organizations who participated in our study. Which goes some way towards answering that question of how do you compensate and fund the time of civil society involvement. I don't think we fully answered the question of what that looks like long term, but I know that's within the Copenhagen framework and the enabling environment. So looking forward to understanding that challenge. But happy for my email address and slides to be shared after the session. Please do reach out if people would like to receive the report or have any other questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I want to be mindful of time. We are at the very end of the time that was allocated to us. And so first, really, thank you so much for your fantastic questions, and also especially the questions about resource mobilization, because without that, we won't be able to make much progress. And I think it's critical that, collectively, we as a community, we ask these questions. And so what happens is that you now have given me one more reason to go make more requests to my bosses, right? And that's how it get, I think hopefully, and then all of us at the collaborative as well, we can continue to think about these things. So thank you. But now I want to do two things. One, thank our great panelists for their fantastic presentations. Thank you for your questions. And then finally, let me just ask my colleague, Jess, I was going to say Jasmine.
So thank you, Ravi.
Yeah.
So I'm tasked to briefly summarize what transpired during this session. So I know I'll be mindful of time.
Okay, I see. So thank you. I need the coffee. So, and then I think we've heard from Hao-Yi with regards to the Copenhagen framework, but the main message there is that when we approach the work on citizen data, it's not just about filling data gaps, it's the broader, contribution of citizens to data development, and therefore it's important that they see themselves in the data that is produced, whether they themselves are producing it or others data producer by other data producers. And that I think with the overall discussion of the 13 principles, that it somehow resonates into the fundamental principles of official statistics, and likewise the presentation of the role of NSOs. I think this is also a clear message that these are not being done in silos. This is a clear acknowledgement of the broader data ecosystem, and that citizens and communities and likewise national statistical offices can work hand in hand in terms of development of citizen data. And then likewise, we've heard from Al from Open Institute, the e-learning course, and likewise Liliana on the e-learning course, and the VNRs, the other on the Copenhagen framework. I think this also resonates with the overall message of Peter when we started, that we need an enabling environment to actually promote and advocate for the production and use of citizen data. And this e-learning courses provide that enabling factors to operationalize such normative frameworks. And I think with the VNR, specifically, I think Liliana has somehow alluded to, again, that CSLs and NSOs in this particular work on citizen data are working as allies. It's not about a choice between citizen data and official statistics, but rather how CSOs and NSOs can work together to be able to effectively monitor our global or national development agenda and commitments. And I think we've heard from, which was a good segue to the presentation from Rachel with regards to the linkages as well as collaboration with the NSO. And I think that the message there is that this is not new for many, or at least some of the NSOs, that citizens and meaningful engagement of citizens in production and use is somehow being done, but now it is with more intentionality and deliberateness that is being prioritized. And lastly, I think we've heard during the question and answer some emerging themes throughout the process, that the themes of the need for guidance, whether it's the VLRs or whether it's the how do we actually define and operationalize meaningful and sufficient engagement throughout the process? Like themes about leaving no one behind, particularly about gender orientation and sexual identities. What else? Access to resources on resource mobilization. And likewise, ensuring that there is coordination and coherence, a case in point, the e-learning courses that we've had. And I think bottom line also, the resource mobilization that is likewise needed to sustain, and not only to sustain, but likewise increase efforts, not only by countries, but more importantly by communities throughout this process. And likewise, I think always a key message for us that in all this work on citizen data, to make sure that we avoid any extractive practices, and likewise we live by the fundamental principles of citizen data that is enshrined in the Copenhagen framework. Thank you.
Now you have 2 minutes for coffee breaks. for, well, it's really up to the session organizers for the next session, which is Jess and Francesca.
10 minutes.
10 minutes. So you'll be back 11:39. Just please.